Hello, fellow educators. Welcome to the 14th episode of Teacher's Tint, a place to regain your strength after a long day, week, or maybe semester this 2023. I'm your host, Steve G. Thanks for your comments on last week's episode. Seems like scoring high on our annual evaluations was a much needed topic according to the feedback received. Today we'll focus on a topic that I would describe as of the utmost importance: parents. They can be a blessing, but sometimes, or a few of them, can be a challenge. In my latest presentation, Becoming Effective Teachers, I rank good communication with parents as one of the 12 traits of an effective teacher. There are teachers that don't work too hard on this because they don't see it as a priority, while there are some that do try but don't feel parents are helping or supporting their own work. This kind of relationship, just like that with staff members and administrators, is of critical importance at all three levels of the K to 12 spectrum. In this episode, as usual, I'll share my 5 things which I believe will help us better relate with parents. So let's hope you enjoy today's presentation. Please keep sharing your feedback after listening, either through comments on Instagram or emails in things you think would help a teacher deal with difficult parents. So let's talk about how to deal with parents in general and especially with invasive parents. An essential first step in a parent teacher relationship is that we assume the best from them. They love their children more than we could possibly ever love them, and even though it may not be too noticeable sometimes, they do want what is best for them. Remembering this first point gives me patience when dealing with a difficult parent. Also, many moms and dads may have had bad experiences in previous schools, so they may come across as aggressive at first. De escalating a conversation and showing them your class is a safe place for them too is a good way to establish a healthy pattern of communication. That does not mean, of course, condoning abuse or disrespect. While we sadly can't control or change their experiences from the past, we can certainly model and establish good and healthy patterns of communication with them for the rest of this year. An effective way to start off is to call mom or dad and compliment something nice you noticed in their child, or simply by saying you're happy to have their little Johnny in your class this year. Every year, I intentionally avoid making my first call to parents to be about a complaint. Now, what if things with parents started off on the wrong foot? Well, try your best to push the reset button and start again whenever possible. It's definitely worth it. Having parents on your side will be extremely useful to you at all times. A second point to ponder is managing parents' expectations. In a book I'm reading about frustrated teachers, an educator shared that a new parent told her that her kid enjoyed having his teachers attend his games, so she was hoping to see her there. Imagine that! Please understand that you don't have to fulfill every one of mom's and dad's expectations. That is not your job. What is expected of you, because it is in your job description, is that you establish a connection channel with parents. It is completely up to you how you're going to communicate with the students' homes. Don't feel pressured to do something you're not comfortable with. One amazing coworker I met when I first moved here used to give families his personal number. Being new in this country, I wondered if I should do the same. I soon decided my privacy was very important to me, and I was not comfortable having texts and calls coming in during my evening, so I soon decided against it. Another time, a fourth grade teacher at my school kindly offered to add me to the class's WhatsApp group she had created to communicate with her parents as the kids moved on to me into the fifth grade. I kindly declined, again, because I didn't feel comfortable communicating through a social media platform with all of my parents at once. You decide how communication will take place. And then, of course, you're consistent with staying in touch. Item number 3 is to allow some parent participation in your classroom. This is hard to do for some educators who feel insecure about allowing other students in their classrooms. I know some even see this as invasive especially young or shy teachers, but trust me, it does help. Now, if this is your case, may I suggest you try to bring in one parent at a time and try to connect with them? Most parents are more appreciative of your work once they have seen what you face daily with all your students in your classroom. In the past, at our school, we would be allowed to bring in volunteer parents to help in our rooms, which was always a blessing. After COVID, we still can't have parents in our building, so that's sort of limited for me right now. Also, if you have field trips, asking them to be chaperones for you is another great way to get to know them and for them to get to know you. A fourth useful thing to do is setting boundaries. Most parents will be respectful and will be pleased with just a reasonable amount of communication. There might be situations when you may have to draw boundaries on some demanding parents. I use an app called Remind to deliver messages to my parents, but if they wish to reach me, I offer either email or my room's phone, where they can leave a message if I'm unavailable. When a colleague of mine was having issues a while ago with a very invasive parent who kept writing daily complaints to her through Remind, I suggested she disable the two-way communication option in the app with this particular mom and offered instead a less readily accessible means. When sending messages to the teachers is not as easy or involves a more complex process, most invasive parents will think more before just grabbing their phones and shooting out an angry message. A final fifth valuable element is to try to keep difficult parents separate. I am not particularly keen on groups such as Facebook or WhatsApp groups where all parents can react to a message and everyone sees everyone else's response. I don't believe it is effective. Furthermore, in my opinion, it only leads to drama. So, even though with Remind I do send one message to all parents, their responses or reactions can only be seen by me. Likewise, when parents want to conference with you, I don't think it's a good idea to agree to speak to more than one mom or dad at a time. You'll simply be outnumbered. Once, when I was an assistant principal, I had an angry mob of 10 parents who showed up en masse expecting to be heard as a group. They had a genuine complaint about a specific teacher, as it turned out later. However, at that time, I calmly responded to them that because I respected their individuality and uniqueness, and I felt they each deserved my time, I would listen to each family separately, even if that meant for me staying until dark. I started interviewing, following the class roster, and when faced with having to wait, many parents just chose to leave. So, the strategy definitely took more of my time, but it certainly paid off. In conclusion, progenitors can be a great blessing, but dealing with those few difficult ones can be a challenge. However, considering these five tips should help, namely, assume they mean well, don't feel you need to fulfill their expectations, allow some space where they can participate in your class, set boundaries when needed, and keep complicated parents separate. These are the top five on my list that we have covered in today's episode. My kids' parents are too invasive. I would love to hear what suggestions would make your top five list. Feel free to email me this or other comments to steve@teacherstent.com. Again, that's steve@teacherstent.com. Or simply follow Teachers Tent on Instagram. Teachers Tent, altogether, lowercase. In ending, I would like to add a disclaimer and an announcement to today's closing section. My disclaimer is sharing with my audience that in over 30 years of teaching, I have never had to face what you would call a bad parent. I have had certainly all sorts of personalities and cultures, but I never had any conflict with moms or dads. I know I'm blessed because I have certainly heard some horror stories, but let this go as my personal tribute to all the parents who have supported me all along. Even though Teachers Tent is meant primarily for teachers, I know there are some parents in the audience, so Here goes my gratitude to you, parents, past and present, for faithfully partnering with me in this amazing job of teaching your child. Thank you. In the meantime, join us next week for our podcast's 15th episode, Ways to Develop a Great Team. We know that when educators work together, they're able to draw support from each other and share tasks, all of which makes the team more effective. However, not everyone is blessed with a great team like mine, with amazing Miss Pearls and Miss D. At Teacher's Tent, we will share some hints to turn a not so awesome team into a great one. So, please let me know in advance any ideas and tips you might have on this big topic. And, no, I haven't forgotten. Here comes the announcement. I have a small surprise for my audience for next week. Hope you won't miss it. Can't say more. Sorry. Just remember that if you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to let your colleagues and friends know about and bring them to Teacher's Tent. We'll make room for them too. Have a great week.